people in my world, at least since William James and probably earlier than him, people like Frederick Myers and way back, essentially argued what's called the filter thesis, or what we call the filter thesis today. And this essentially says that the brain is certainly mediating these states of consciousness, but it's actually not producing them. And so what you want to look for is instances in which the brain is being shut down, because then other things can flow in. In a filter thesis, the brain is a filter. You're shutting most things out so that you can eat things and survive and reproduce and in a kind of Darwinian sense. And so what you want to look for is when does the brain shut down? And of course, psychedelics is a great way to shut down brain processes. Meditation is a great way to shut down brain processes. Car wrecks, lightning strikes, you can go on. But every instance of this shutting down the brain is probably going to be traumatic to the person unless you can integrate it into the ritual of the system, which is I think what meditation is. So I think it matters a great deal. What I'm trying to say is it matters a great deal how you understand the relationship between brain and consciousness, or brain and mind. And I think the reigning scientific model is certainly the production thesis. And so when the brain shuts down in death, guess what? Consciousness just blips out like a light bulb, because the material base has ended.
Right.
But in Elizabeth's view, and I think in Whitley's and in a lot of these experiences, that actually doesn't actually end consciousness. So clearly consciousness is not dependent on brain processes. Clearly it's something else is going on, and that's where this filter thesis comes in. And you can call it transmission thesis, you can call it all kinds of things, but it's essentially a different understanding of how the brain and the mind are related.
Is this connected anyway to Chardin's theory of the noosphere?
Yeah, Teilhard de Chardin.
Yeah. Teilhard is his first name.
Yeah, Teilhard. Probably. I mean, so I know a lot about Teilhard. I can tell you funny stories about Teilhard de Chardin too. He was a Catholic paleontologist who had basically his view was that God worked through evolution, and that the nous was this sort of cosmic mind that was going to develop, in the future when human beings were more integrated in some way. And so he talked about the noosphere, and some people have connected this to the internet and, have kind of gone in that direction. It's really not what Teilhard was saying. He was much more interested in evolution as a kind of mystical process through which God creates human beings and eventually consciousness and eventually this sort of nous cosmic mind. Right. So I would say that most religions have a filter thesis. In other words, they do not understand the body as producing mind or consciousness, full stop. Most traditional cultures see the soul or the spirit as somehow independent of the body and the brain. And so when the body and the brain dies, the soul or the spirit does not. Now, again, that's open to conversation. I don't have an answer there, but I think someone like Teilhard, who comes out of a Roman Catholic mystical tradition, definitely was working with some kind of filter thesis, although he would never use that language, and I would never impose it on him.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting when you think about this sort of like unifying consciousness, like this noosphere, and
yeah.
Basically, and do I have this right? The idea is somebody like across the world can come up with this crazy new idea, and at the same time, like somebody on the polar opposite of the planet will have the same idea, right? Like somehow we're all connected in this sort of layer of consciousness that envelops all of us.
Well, so a lot of religious practice implies this. So, for example, if I were to, I'm not a religious person, Danny, but...
Oh, you're not?
I'm not. I mean, not in a traditional way, but...
You believe in God?
Yeah, I do actually. We could talk about that. I'm not. I'm framing this though in a particular way.
Okay, sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. We can go back there.
Yeah.
Let's say I were to pray for you.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that ritual implies we're connected in some way, and that I can pray to this deity who can then somehow impact Danny's life. I mean, there's a kind of trialogue going on there. There's a kind of triangle there. But also in a lot of psychical experience, somebody wakes up in the middle of the night and says, "Oh, Grandma just died." They know instantly.
Right.
So clearly there's a connection there between the loved one and the person who wakes up. Well, what is that connection? What is going on there? And so that's the kind of, one of my colleagues calls it coherence. That's the kind of, Barbara Newman's her name, that's the kind of connection that is so deep it needs religious language to describe it. And I think a lot of the reason I invoke prayer is it implies the same thing, even if people don't talk about it. If you're praying for someone, then you're connected to that person. You believe on some level you're connected to that person, and that your mental act can somehow affect physical events, which is a remarkable thing, Danny. If that in case is true.
Right. So why, being a person who studies religion and has dedicated your life to religion, how could you not be a religious person?
I knew you were going to come back to that. It goes back to the taking everybody seriously thing. If I sign my name to a particular religion, it means I've locked out all these other people. Mm-hmm. And so it's not that I deny religious views. In fact, I think I believe everything, Danny, which means I believe nothing. Because the religions exclude one another. Mm-hmm. Well, I can't exclude other people. I just can't do that, because I think people are innately, inherently religious and have these experiences, and I want to take those experiences as seriously as I take my own experiences seriously. And so I can't fall back and say, I'm this or I'm that, because in my own mind, that doesn't allow me to live with and take these other people seriously. So it's not that I often describe myself as the most religious person I know, but I don't actually have a religion. Not at least one I can identify.
What do you think God is?
I think God is us. I think we're God. I think, but not Danny, but not Jeff, but we tap into some greater reality, that we call God in the Christian or the Jewish or the Islamic traditions, but that other traditions call other things. That you don't have to be theistic or personal about it. There are religious traditions that acknowledge that other greater reality, but don't turn it into a person or a God.
Well, God is us. Can you expand on that?
So let me put it this way. If I experience an alien and it looks a lot like I do, my inclination is to think it's somehow me that I'm projecting to deal with. I'm dealing with my own greater self by having this kind of experience, and it looks a lot like me because it is me. Mm-hmm. And I have never ever heard about an experience of God that didn't come from a human being. Ever. Mm-hmm. Okay, my dog does not talk about her experiences of God, okay? Nor did many of our cats or any animal. I have only heard experiences of God from other human beings, which leads me to think that there's something really human about God, that God is somehow this deeper self or cosmic mind behind or within humanity. And it's not that Jeff Kripal or Danny Jones is God. I'm not saying that. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that we tap into and we exist because of this greater life force that lots of people have chosen to call God. And I'm like, okay, call it God. That's what you want. But other people don't call it God, Danny. Mm-hmm. They call it a whole bunch of other things. And I'm like, well, that's true too. That's your experience.